I remember hearing a story about these two little kids somewhere in Ohio. Allison and Davie were left home alone while their parents went on their usual Friday night dinner. Since Allison was 15 and more mature and her brother was only 12, she was in charge. Davie went into the kitchen to pop a bag of popcorn for the movie they were about to watch. Allison got ready to start the movie when she heard the thunder. "It's raining, Davie, hurry up." Even though they lived in a pretty good neighborhood, their parents always reminded them to make sure all the doors and windows were locked. So Allison started walking through the house, checking each lock as their parents instructed. When she was sure the house was secure, she went back to the living room, where her brother was sitting on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. They had fought about what scary movie to watch earlier, but since she was the oldest, Allison had chosen to watch Candyman since it was one of her favorites. "That's too scary, Allison," Davie said. "Stop being such a big baby." They started watching the movie when about halfway through, they both heard louder thunder and could see lightning flashing through the window. It had started raining so hard that they could hear it beating down on the house and against the windows. Davie said, "It's really raining hard." Just then, all of the lights went out and the TV cut off. Davie let out a loud, surprised yell. Allison said, "It's just the storm that knocked out the power. Don't be scared, you little munchkin." She got up and headed to the kitchen to get a flashlight from the drawer. Davie called out, "Don't leave me," Allison replied. "Relax, I'm only going in the basement to flip the breaker to turn the power back on. I'll be right back." Allison started walking slowly down the basement stairs, and with each step she took, the stairs made an eerie creaking noise. It reminded her of when she was younger, you know, how she used to be so afraid of going into the basement alone because she thought some sort of monster lived under the stairs. She chuckled a little, realizing how ridiculous and immature she had been. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she scanned the flashlight around. She could make out the old furniture her parents had moved down there the year before, and some boxes stacked on top of each other in the far left corner. As Allison slowly walked to the right of the basement, careful not to trip over anything in the dark, she felt a cold breeze on her face. "Allison, what's taking you so long?" This startled her and she dropped the flashlight. "Damn it, Davie. I'll be up there in a minute. Stop freaking out, okay?" she said, "but it's so dark." "When are Mom and Dad coming home?" he whimpered. "They'll be home in a little while, Davie, like they always are. But it's storming. What if they got lost or something?" "Davie, they did not get lost. I'm pretty sure they're waiting until the storm calms down before they drive home," she said. This didn't make Davie feel any better because it was still dark and still storming. But he sighed and said, "Okay, anyway," not moving from the top of the stairs. Allison scanned the flashlight back to the corner where the breaker box was on the wall. When she felt the cold air again, she wondered where the cold air was coming from and scanned the flashlight around the basement. There was a bright flash of lightning that briefly lit up the room, and she saw that a window was open. "Oh no, Mom is gonna kill me." As she hurried over to the breaker box, she heard a shuffle that sounded like it came from somewhere near where the furniture was. She turned her head and scanned the area with the flashlight, watching and listening. But when she didn't hear anything else, she turned her attention back to the breaker box. She didn't really know which switch went to what, so she flipped them all back and forth until all of the lights were on. "Yes, you did it," she heard her brother yell with happiness. Ignoring him, Allison walked over to the open window and stepped in a puddle of water. "Shit," she muttered. Then, a bit frustrated, she called out, "Davie, were you down here earlier and opened the window? There's rain all over the floor." Davie replied, "No, I only got a clean blanket from the dryer. I didn't open a window." Allison sighed and said, "Well, someone did. Bring me the mop from the kitchen so I can clean the rain up." She stood there for a minute, just kind of looking around the basement. Nothing else seemed out of place, but she had this weird, eerie feeling and didn't know why. It felt like someone was watching her, but she knew she was the only one there. After what felt like was an hour, she yelled up to Davie again, asking where the mop was. Her brother didn't respond. Allison called out, "Davie," but there was still no answer. She yelled even louder, and he still didn't respond. Feeling the rest of the patience she had left leave her body, she decided to go get the mop herself and see what her brother was doing. When she got to the top of the stairs, Davie suddenly jumped in front of her with the mop in his hand. "God damn it, Davie, you're the most scariest boy I know, and you're trying to scare people," she yelled. "Sorry, Allison, I had to use the bathroom. I could have fell, you little shit. As a matter of fact, I'm telling Mom and Dad you left this window open and it rained in here. We'll see who's laughing then." All of a sudden, Davie stopped laughing and had a serious look on his face. "I knew you wouldn't think that was funny," she said. She stared at Davie and watched his eyes grow wider and his face turn into pure horror. "Davie, what's wrong?" Allison asked with a bit of worry. She quickly realized her brother wasn't looking at her. He was looking at something behind her. "Allison," Davie whispered, slowly pointing behind her. "What?" she shouted, spinning around. Allison let out the loudest scream she had ever screamed in her life. There was a tall, skinny man standing at the bottom of the stairs with what looked like dried blood on his face and clothes. He was holding a sharp-looking object in his left hand with a creepy wide grin that stretched from ear to ear that showed all of his front teeth. Both kids watched in horror as the man charged towards them. Allison turned around to tried to run through the door, but Davie was still standing there and she slammed into him, falling flat on her stomach and Davie falling backwards on his back. She could hear the man running up the stairs behind her. His breathing was hard and loud, and she was terrified. Her heart was beating so loud and fast in her ears that she barely noticed how loudly her brother was screaming. She was frantically trying to stand on her feet when she felt a tight grip on her right ankle. Time felt like it started going in slow motion when she felt him pulling her down the stairs. She started clawing at the stairs and handrail to get away, but nothing was working. She was being dragged down the stairs by this man, and honestly, 1,000 things were running through her mind. When the man had got her to the bottom of the stairs, her head slammed to the floor, and he stepped over her, skipping 2 stairs at a time. She could hear her brother crying, but her head was spinning and ringing with pain. Then she heard the basement door slam shut. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as she laid there fighting to get up. "Davie, please don't hurt him," she let out a soft cry. The man was standing over her now, with that creepy smile from ear to ear, holding the sharp object. She knew she wasn't getting away, but there was nothing she could do, and her eyes got wide with fear. Davie was still on the floor in the kitchen, not knowing what to do, scared out of his mind. It got really quiet, and all of a sudden he heard his sister's blood-curdling screams. It sounded like glass was breaking and someone hitting something really hard. He could hear the man growling and laughing, and he knew he was hurting his sister, but there was nothing he could do. About 30 minutes later, Davie's parents came home and found him curled in the kitchen corner, terrified, with only his underwear on, and he pissed himself. They were asking him what was wrong and where his sister was, but he didn't answer them and just stayed quiet. They walked all over the house, calling Allison's name, but she didn't answer. Their mother finally snatched the door to the basement open and stood there, calling her daughter's name. She asked Davie if she was down there, but he still sat silent and motionless. "She better not have left and left you here alone." She walked down the stairs and let out a terrifying scream. She was screaming over and over. The father ran down the stairs to a horrifying scene. Their precious baby girl had been slashed to pieces. There was blood and limbs all over the basement. The police had said this was the most disturbing crime scene they had ever witnessed in their town. The basement window was open and there was no sign of the creepy killer, and he was never caught. The most interesting thing, however, was when they were getting in their car to take Davie to the hospital to get checked out. Some witnesses swear they saw Davie with the strangest smile on his face, just staring at the house. Why was he smiling? What was so funny? Why did he only have his underwear on when his parents came home, sitting in the kitchen on the floor? I guess we will never know. The last I heard, he was working as a butcher somewhere in New York City, but one can only speculate.